How's it going, everybody? So the last few years I've been collecting a lot of leatherworking tools and gunsmithing tools, but I haven't had a chance to make a proper place for them yet. I've just been keeping them in these boxes. I have this assembly bench in the middle of my shop, and there's a lot of wasted space under it, and since I'm usually using this bench anyway for my gunsmithing and my leatherwork, I figured under this bench would be the perfect spot. I was never really happy with how much this bench rocks back and forth. When I built it originally, I decided to try and use a new type of interlocking mortise and tenon, but it was a complete fail. I don't recommend it. Originally, I was planning on rebuilding the entire base of this bench for this project, but when I was talking to a friend about it, she asked, why don't you just place some 2x4s diagonally across the inside of the bench? Wouldn't that make it sturdy? And to be completely honest, I'm not sure why I didn't think of that, and that's what I ended up going with. I decided to use half laps in the middle of a 2x4 to create X's, and then I decided I was just going to screw the plywood directly to the braces to give the bench even more stability. Thank you. Can I have another one? Thank you. The type of plywood you use really isn't that important, so I decided I'm just going to use a couple of sheets of OSB, which works just as well for adding shear strength. There's two reasons why I decided to put plywood on the sides of the bench. The first reason is that it gives me a surface to work with when placing the tool holders. And the other is that it gives the bench extra rigidity. Putting a skin on the outside of any 2x4 structure is always going to give it much more shear strength. I also decided to add a couple of pieces of plywood to the end of the bench to add to its strength in the other direction. Now, most people don't have access to a table saw, so this next step is a bit optional. I'm a bit fanatic for French cleats, so I decided to use them. If you cut 1x material into 3-inch sections and then rip cut down the piece at about a 45-degree angle, you end up with 2 cleats per board. Then if you take these cleats and attach them to any sheet of plywood, you can take the rest of the cleats and attach them to the back of a tool holder, which allows you to hang the tool holders anywhere you've placed the cleats. It makes the tool holders incredibly mobile, so you can move them if you decide you want to move them later. The easiest way to install the cleats is to put a 2-inch or 3-inch spacing between the cleats. The closer the cleats are together, the more versatility there will be in the placement of the holders. And since my shop is already covered in all these French cleats anyway, it'll be really easy if I decide to rearrange my shop later. I can just move the tool holders to any of the other areas where I already have French cleats. Of course, if you don't have access to a table saw or you just want the project to be a lot easier, you could just as easily screw the tool holders directly to any sheet of plywood that you place. You can skip the step of doing the French cleats, but I'm going to go ahead and put them on mine. And before anyone asks, yes, the 2-year-old is necessary. That way you have someone to hand you the screws. I mean, I guess you could go get the screws yourself, but it's much less satisfying.
What do you think, Ellie? Yeah? Good spot?
Oh look, it's a big X and a diamond in the middle.
Once everything was installed, the bench was so much more sturdy. I'm really happy with the way it turned out. The tool holders themselves really aren't that difficult to make. It's usually just a series of holes in a block of wood or a box, or sometimes it's just a few nails hammered into a piece of plywood. Since these tool holders are going to be placed underneath the workbench, I decided to put something like a 10-degree angle on a lot of these holders so that when you're sitting at the bench, the tools will lean out toward you. Once I had all of the tool holders in place, I decided to start focusing on the area underneath the bench. I'm considering this area a combination of deep storage and a bit of a fun place for the kids to play in. I even thought about putting a secret door on the side here to make it a secret hiding spot for the kids. I haven't quite decided what I want to do with it yet, so I've decided to leave it open for now. I didn't want to spend any money on the flooring of the bench, and so I just used a bunch of scrap plywood I had, and then I ended up covering the floor with the rest of the OSB I had left. I really didn't think that the floor was that important, so I just used what I had. Well, anyway, that's the bench completed. I'm so happy with the way the bench worked out. It's going to be so nice to have all of my tools out of the boxes and easily accessible. I know I'm going to get a lot of use out of these areas. Well, anyway, thanks for watching. Catch you all next time.